In this video, we're going to be reviewing and installing the eufy Floodlight Cam 2 Pro. In this video, we're going to cover the key features and how this stands apart from the competition, as well as what it takes to get this installed and set up, and be sure to stay to the end where we'll tell you if this is the right choice for you. We've had a Ring Floodlight Cam for years, and we're excited to try this new solution from eufy. This camera is a 360-degree camera, so it's going to be able to cover more of our backyard than our old camera could. Now, full disclosure, eufy sent this camera to us and asked us to do an honest review, and that's what we're going to do. If this is your first time to the Top Homeowner channel, our goal is to help you become the very best homeowner that you can be. We do product review videos like this one here, as well as cover tips on home repair, home maintenance, and home remodeling. So be sure to subscribe to the Top Homeowner channel so you don't miss any of our future videos. Also, if you're interested in picking one of these up yourself, we'll have a link in the description below where you can go and check out the current price. All right, so first up, let's talk about some of the key features that make this unit stand out compared to the competition. First, let's talk about the fact that this is a 2K camera. Now, 2K video sounds a little bit odd. We're not used to hearing about 2K. We're typically used to hearing about 4K, which is the TV standard now. And we're also used to hearing about 1080p, which is the old high definition standard. So 2K fits right in between these two. It has more quality than a 1080p video, so you're gonna be able to get some of the more finer details like license plate numbers. And compared to 4K videos tend to be quite large. So 2K is going to be able to split the difference between quality and file size. And file size is going to be important, as you'll see here in a minute. Probably the most obvious feature is that it's a 360-degree camera. Now, this is fantastic if you have a really large area that you want to monitor, say if you have a really large backyard, or if you want to mount this on like the corner of your house and you want to monitor two sides of your house. You'll be able to cover a large area with only one camera as compared to other solutions where you'd have to have multiple. So this can be a cost savings in the end. Also, speaking of the camera, it is able to track motion. So once it detects motion from one of its sensors, even if the camera is not pointed in that direction, it will pick up the motion and start tracking it. Now, you can either have this set to track any motion, so if there's anything going by like a car or an animal, something like that, or you can turn on the AI feature. The AI feature will have the camera only track and focus on people. This is a great feature, especially if you're in an area with a lot of wildlife, or if you have a lot of traffic, say going by on the street next to your house. This will help cut down on false alerts and false recordings. The camera also has built-in two-way audio, so not only can you hear what's going on where it's installed, you can also have a two-way conversation.
Hey Dad, can you open the door?
And last but certainly not least are the massive lights that come with this unit. These things are very bright. In fact, there are warning labels everywhere warning you not to stare into the lights. And that's for good reason, because they light up pretty much our entire backyard. Now, thankfully, eufy includes a feature where you can dim or brighten the light from your phone. So if you don't need quite as much brightness, you can actually tone that down. You can also set the brightness at different levels for different features. So if you want it to be a certain level for like the dusk to dawn feature where it comes on at sunset and it turns off at sunrise, you can actually tone down the brightness. And then once it detects motion, it can ramp it up to a brighter level. So it's really nice that eufy's included this flexibility, and you can really fine tune this to what your needs are. Now, we will cover more of these features in greater detail here in a second, but first let's jump into the unboxing and see what's included. Select all the parts to install it, security sticker, installation quick start guide. We have the camera itself. We'll leave everything protected until we get it installed. So one interesting thing about this is that you're supposed to plug this into USB before you install it on your home. So we're going to do that right now. And that's just going to let us set up the application and get this connected so we can control it before we get it installed on the house. So I'm going to go ahead and plug this in here. So now what we're going to do is we're going to open this up. There's a button on the front here underneath. So I'm going to push that, and then this should fold down. And there we go. So what this is going to do is it's going to let you access the QR code that's underneath here, and that'll let you set this up in your app. The other thing that this does is because it can open up this way, it will let you either install the camera underneath an eave like this, or you can mount it to the wall like this. So we're going to have this wall mounted. But before we do that, let's go ahead and get it set up in the app. Now, because we have a eufy robot vacuum, we already have a eufy app installed, but this camera requires a separate app called eufy Security. So I'm gonna have to install that first in order to get it set up. All right, so now that we're in the eufy app, we're gonna go ahead and add the device, select Floodlight Cam Pro, allow access to the camera, and that's gonna let us scan the QR code that's inside. So it's still flashing red. So say it's flashing red. And then it says press the sync button on the top of the floodlight cam for 2 seconds until you hear a beep. It's flashing blue now. Now it's going to connect to the camera over Bluetooth. Select the Wi-Fi network and put in my password.
Connecting to the Wi-Fi network. Please wait. Setup was successful.
Oh, it says someone has been spotted. That must be me since it's right here. And then here's the two different mounting options that I was talking about. This is a wall mount, which is what we're going to do, and this is an under eave mount. So if you have that as the location where you need to install this, this is the only floodlight camera that I've seen that's a smart camera that can actually install up under the eave. The Ring Floodlight Cam that we have won't do that. You have to install on a wall. So if this is your situation, I think this is going to be a good choice. All right, so let's go ahead and get this unplugged. We don't need this now since it's set up. We'll put this plug back in here and we'll start getting this installed. Make sure you shut off the power before you get started on the installation. Now that the power is off, we're going to go ahead and remove our old light. And since this is a ring light, we're going to use a special tool here to get this unscrewed. Disconnect these wire nuts. We'll unscrew this ground from the wall plate. We're going to remove this existing plate here because this is specific for the ring that we're removing. And then we'll get this off the wall. Now we need to put this bracket in place. It's the one that comes with the eufy. And we want to make sure that this concave part is actually facing in towards the box, because otherwise when we mount the light, it's going to not be able to get flush up against the house. Okay, now we're going to use this hook that's included. We're going to wrap it around the lights here, and this is going to let us hold the light in place while we make the wire connections. Now I'm going to install this green ground screw in the bracket so that way it's ready to go. So now it's just a matter of making these connections. This is our ground wire. So it's a bare copper wire that's going to go to the green wire that's on the light. Wrap these two wires together a little bit, and then we're going to screw a nut down on the end. And then we're going to do the same thing for the other two wires. Black wire, which is the hot wire, and the neutral wire, or the white wire. Now I'm also going to take this copper wire, I'm going to wrap it around this green ground screw, and I'm going to tighten that down. Next, I'm going to remove this strap. I'm going to push this button on the front again, like we did when we get this set up. Then I'm going to take these wires and I'm going to gently push them inside of the electrical box. I'm going to make sure we don't have any pinched wires when we put this on the wall. And then we're going to take that bolt and stick it through here. That is in place. Now I'll go turn on the power again, and then I'll pull off all this protective plastic and we'll make our final adjustments. I'm going to go ahead and flare these lenses out a little bit. I'm just going to unscrew the screw at the bottom here and tighten this down. You can adjust the whole assembly this way, point it down, and then I'll do the same thing for this light. I will move it a little bit more in, but not too much, because I want to make sure to try and light up the side of the yard as much as possible too. As far as video quality is concerned, well, let's check that out. There's usually a lot of talk and questions about how sensitive these cameras are, like how far away can something be before it starts recording. I think the general thought and the general feelings are that the farther something away is when it starts recording, the better. And I'm actually going to disagree with that. And the reason for that is because we've had a lot of experience with these types of cameras, and what we tend to find happening more often than not are false alarms or false recordings or false alerts. Being able to record things far off in the distance isn't necessarily a benefit. So I like the fact that eufy has included a lot of different options here and be able to tune this into your exact location. It has motion sensor sensitivity on it for both the sides and the front of the unit, as well as a feature within the app where you can tell it what things to record, like to detect motion at, and what areas on your property to ignore, so that way you can cut down on the false alarms. Speaking of motion tracking, we're also curious about how this performs if there are multiple objects in our yard, which is where we have this installed. And in order to test that, my wife and I went to the backyard to see what would happen. Now, as you can see here, we're both standing in the middle of the yard and we both part ways. And the eufy did something really interesting, which is it actually bounced between myself and my wife. And I think this is probably the best result we could have hoped for, because it didn't just try and track one thing, it actually tried to track both things as best as it could. So I think eufy did a really good job here with the programming. Again, with the AI feature, it will track human faces and shapes only, and it will reject other things. Now, we did have a little bit of an issue with this. It does like to track our black lab, as you can see here, but other than that, it does a really good job of rejecting all the wildlife that we have in our backyard. As far as some of the other security features are concerned, there are some other options that you can do to enhance the use of your camera. For example, you can set presets. So if you have a large area that you want to cover, you can set multiple presets for the camera to view. And then you can also turn on the auto cruise option. The auto cruise option will let the camera pan back and forth constantly. So if anything happens, you have a greater chance of it picking it up early. Now, I will say you don't have to have this enabled for it to detect things that aren't showing up on the camera. This actually has multiple motion sensors built into it, so it doesn't rely just on the camera to pick up motion. If it senses something that's off screen, the camera will automatically go to it and then start tracking it. Once motion is detected, you'll see a notification on your phone, and you can either click on that notification and go to the live video to see what's going on, or you can ignore it and then go back and watch the recorded video later. If you see something that you don't like, you can also turn on a siren that will alert out of the floodlight. You can either have it set off a siren, just flash the lights, or both. As far as the lights are concerned, not only can you adjust the brightness, you can also adjust the color temperature if you like a more warmer light or a cooler blue light, as well as adjust each of the individual panels to help get the exact coverage that you need for your area. If you have any concerns about replacing, say, a standard floodlight with this one because you're not quite sure if it's going to be bright enough, I wouldn't worry about it. This thing is so bright, we're actually a little concerned that it's going to annoy our neighbors, and if it does, we at least can turn it down in the app. And of course, this is able to integrate with your other smart home devices, either if you have other eufy security devices, or if you want to control this from either Google Home or Amazon Alexa. One of the biggest advantages this has is the fact that all the video that it records is stored on the local camera. So that means, as opposed to other competitors, you're not having to upload your video footage to the cloud. Everything is stored locally and encrypted with military-grade encryption, keeping all of your video private. Now, if you do want to store your video footage to the cloud, eufy does have an option where you can do that. In addition to local storage and cloud storage options, you also have a third option, which is recording your video directly to a NAS that's on your local network. Now, NAS stands for a network attached storage device. This is more of an advanced option, so you might not need it, but if you're familiar with it, you might find this feature very valuable. Something else to know is that eufy also offers monitoring services. So if you have the Floodlight or if you have any of the other eufy security products, you can actually pay for 24/7 live monitoring. So it will go to a dispatch center if your alarm is triggered. And if you don't want to pay for that service and live monitoring, they actually have one tier below it where you can dispatch police manually through the app. All right, so let's cover some of the things that could be improved with this and I hope to see in future editions. When you install this on the wall, it actually has a flat ledge on the top. Now, I understand why they did this because it gives you flexibility in being able to mount it underneath an eave, for example, and on the wall, depending on what your situation is. Now, I will say, though, that I'd prefer if they had included some kind of a plastic cover or something that can go on top of it to help prevent birds from nesting on top of it, for example, and to help with water runoff. Something else to be aware of is that the camera movement is not entirely fluid. It looks like the camera has multiple positions that it can move to. So it's not really a problem, but you do need to be aware of it. When you're looking at video, you see that the video goes from one position to another. It's not a problem, but it could be a little bit choppy. Another nice thing would have been to see a sticker included that you could put next to a light switch that says "Don't turn off," because in a lot of cases where these will be installed, it's going to be replacing an existing light. So obviously, if you turn the light switch off, there's not going to be any power getting to the light or the camera, so nothing's going to work. So just a little sticker to remind you to keep that light switch on would have been really nice. Now, the big question is, who is this for, or who is this best for? And I think this has a lot of use and a lot of different applications for most people, but I think really if you're wanting to monitor a large area, and especially if you can mount this in a place where you can utilize most of the 360-degree view, like say underneath an eave or something like that, I think this is the perfect choice for you because you're going to get a lot of light from it and you're going to be able to record a lot of things from only having one camera. Again, I'll have a link in the description below where you can go and check out more information about this. And as always, I want to thank you for watching the Top Homeowner channel, where our goal is to help you become the very best homeowner that you could possibly be. Thanks for watching this video, and we'll see you in the next one.